Hey there everyone, Laurel Beard here. Welcome to another video here in my 25 days of Christmas video series. That's 25 videos in 25 days, holy cow. Today's video we're going to be looking at 3 ways to use watercolor brush markers. So let's get to it. I've got 3 cards to share with you today. I'm going to be using the holiday border stamp set from the 10 stamps for all 3 of my cards. And I've got some Bristol paper here because I'm using some watercolor brush pens. Bristol is the best. That goes for any kind of watercolor brush pen you have, whether it's the Zig markers, whether it's the Altenew watercolor brush markers, which I'm going to be using today. I believe there are Arteza markers on Amazon. I feel that the Bristol paper is the best. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up 2 of these stamps, or 2 of the image. Let me start over. I'm going to ink up this image twice. I'm going to stamp it with VersaMark ink, and then I'm going to press it down. I am using my MISTI stamping tool here. I'm going to do heat embossing, so I'm going to prep my card with the anti-static tool there that I have. If you don't have a tool like this, grab some kitchen flour, baby powder, cornstarch, and just kind of brush that onto your paper before heat embossing. That way your embossing powder will stick to where you want it to. So I'm going to do that twice, and then I'm going to heat emboss using 2 different color embossing powders. The first is a gold. It's from Brutus Monroe. It's called Gilded, and I'm just going to dump that onto my card panel here and then funnel it back into the jar. And the second one is a deep gray color. It's called Gunmetal, and that's from Ranger. And then I'll go ahead and heat emboss those here. You can see the difference. I love both of these embossing powders. Once my panels are good and melted, you can tell when your embossing powder is melted because it becomes shiny. When it's in powder form, it's dull. When it becomes shiny, it is all melted and you're good to go. So here are the Altenew water brush markers that I'm using here. I'm only going to use 4 of the colors from that set here. Rubellite, Midnight Violet, Moss, and Emerald, which is a purple, a green, a blue, and a pink. Any colors you want that fancy you, go for it. Let's take a look at the first way. We're just going to scribble it onto the paper, and it's going to look god-awful ugly. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now. There is no rhyme or reason as to where I'm putting that brush and that color. I'm just scribbling it on there. Just make sure you use colors that complement each other and that don't turn to mud. For example, I wouldn't go in here with the yellow because when the yellow and pink or the yellow and purple meet, it turns to brown. So once I've scribbled on the colors, I am liberally spraying that with water. You could also spray this with a perfect pearl mix and get a really beautiful shine if you wanted to. I'm sticking with the good old H2O, and check that out once it's dry. It is absolutely beautiful. I let it dry naturally because I like the lines, the puddles, that it leaves behind. And here's a look at the finished card I created. I went ahead and heat embossed a sentiment also from the 10 stamps in the gold, which is the other color I'm using on the next card. And then I put in some Nuvo drops on those berries down there. I have all the supplies linked below if you're interested, and then just adhered it to a card base. Number 2, let's get on to traditional watercoloring. So I'm just taking, this time I'm using the moss. I'm taking it, I'm applying it directly to the paper, and then I'm going to take a very wet paintbrush and start blending out that green. And you can see how beautiful these colors react with the water on this Bristol paper. They blend great. Then I'm going to go in with emerald. I'm just going to have a good old time. And when you're here's the funny thing, when you're putting watercolor down, it's funny because I find that the uglier it looks when you're putting it down, the beautiful it's going to be when it dries. I don't know what it is, and here's what I mean. So I'm going in with the emerald, and at first I thought I was just going to dab it in here. Now I'm just scribbling all over the place, and I also wanted to create a little border around the edge of that floral. So I put it down, then I've got a wet paintbrush, and I'm just going to move all that around. And at this point I'm like, ooh, but I knew it was going to turn out pretty because I'm thinking, ooh. Then I'm going to take some water and just kind of mist the middle section with some water just to blend out that color so it kind of fades into the center, so to speak. And then I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to zap it a little bit with this heat it tool just to kind of push the water back up into the images, and then I'm just going to let it dry. And here I heat embossed a sentiment from the other color that I used on the other card, the Gunmetal, and that's this card. I just adhered it to card base. Pretty easy. Let's get on to the final one, direct to stamp. And actually, this is the easiest one and the quickest one and my favorite out of all of them. So I'm going to take the markers and I'm just going to scribble right onto my stamp here. I use the edge of the brush. I don't know if you can tell because I do have this in kind of a faster speed, but I'm going in with the side of the brush and I'm just adding the color. No rhyme or reason, just making sure that for the most part the stamp is covered with some kind of color from these markers. Then I'm going to take some water and just mist it to kind of move the water around or move the watercolor around a little bit on the stamp. And again, that is Bristol paper. So here's where I'm spritzing it. You can see the water bubble up and then I'm going to press it down. I kind of hold it in place for just a minute or two to allow that water to seep into the paper. And then when I lift it, look how pretty that is. It's like, that's it. Done. I stamped a sentiment here. This is from Catherine Pooler in some blackjack gray ink, and bang, that card was done. Easiest and my favorite out of all three. Isn't that crazy? So here's a look at all three of the cards again. And yeah, watercoloring. Three ways to use your watercolor brush markers. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you're enjoying the 25 days of Christmas video series that I've got. I've plugged in a couple videos here to check out from the series. And I'll be back tomorrow. See you then.